Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for taking your time to, for your making your afternoon free to listen to this lecture that I'll be sharing with all of you regarding my research through the years on Filipinos and their participation in the Spanish Civil War between 1936 and 1939 in Spain. And uh, this research, I would like to thank many people actually who has shared their interest at the same time. There's resources leading me to the proper sources. I'd like to mention Dr. Tino Rodao, Florentino Rodao, uh, also Vina Lansona, Dr. Vina Lansona from the University of Hawaii Manoa, and also uh, Dr. Bomen Guillermo of the University of the Philippines, okay, who has shared with me extensively also some of his findings regarding some Filipinos who participated also in this particular this very momentous but very bloody event i- uh, in Spain, okay, which would be considered as one of the bloodiest conflicts of the 20th century. Okay, now if you will allow me, I would like to share my slides now to begin. And okay, let me maybe okay, okay. Well, um, so many of you maybe are thinking already, or even asking yourselves on how did we participate? In what way did we participate in the Spanish Civil War? And you'll be surprised that there are almost 200 actually Filipinos, at least verified from my part, okay, who have actually participated from this war. Some of them directly coming from the Philippines, and some of them participating in the war outside of the country from the United States of America, and later on finding themselves in a war already in Europe. And coincidentally, the same photograph that I have here right now, which is also being used in the poster for this particular lecture, is shows you actually a very international group of soldiers who form part of what we refer to as the International Brigades from the United States, known as the Abraham Lincoln Brigade, okay, which shows you people from various nationalities. And the rightmost person that you see there is actually a Filipino, whom I will describe later on in this lecture. And well, maybe to start off with regards to what exactly was the Spanish Civil War and how did we get involved in a foreign war that uh, that would be thousands of miles away at the same time. Uh, knowing our background, our connection with Spain during the colonial period, we will find ourselves, or we will find Filipinos actually participating in a war, okay, that will be fought on Spanish soil. And as I've said earlier, no, this would be considered one of the bloodiest conflicts of the 20th century in Europe. Okay. Well, if you are familiar with the American Civil War, where they call it a brothers' war, this is also considered a bloody a brothers' war, except that this was a war that was that happened due to conflicts in ideology, conflicts in class. And because of this, you will find people from the same family being either on one side of the conflict or on the other side of the conflict. Okay, brothers with different ideologies, cousins with different ideologies, and referring to women because women took part in the civil war, forming part of the militias. Okay, so this was more than a brothers' war. This was actually a war that even up to now is still being talked about in Spain. At the same time, it is still considered an open wound. Okay, and I will share you more of my experiences with events. Okay, even up to the year 2000s. Okay, when a change of government, okay, literally brought back memories as well of the civil war that ended in 1939. Well, breezing through the history or the background of the Civil War, basically it is a failure of Spanish democracy. And if you are familiar with the history of Spain, okay, uh, we know Spain as being a great country with its empire spreading practically on all the continents. Okay, that's why it was called the empire where the sun never sets because of how big the empire was. And by the end of the 19th century, it was already an old man, as if I may use that expression. Okay, after it has experienced the breakup of its so-called empire, the loss of the American colonies, no, in Latin America, and later on, okay, experimenting with republicanism, okay, vis-a-vis with that of the return of the monarchy, okay, and of course, if we are to refer to it as the ultimate blow, you also have here the Spanish-American War of 1898, okay, which would be an aftermath of the Philippine Revolution, okay. But this Spaniards here refer to it as the disaster of 1898. Why? Because this is where they lost the colonies, the last major colonies that they have, and that was the Philippines, Cuba, and Puerto Rico. Okay. Well, at the same time, Spain's monarchy was already at its weakest point. Okay. And the Bourbons, who were the ruling family of Spain at that time, and well, even up to now, okay, already found themselves also part of this problem because even the Spanish monarchy could not actually unite and heal the wounds of a Spain that was already racked with various ideologies coming from the outside, okay, class wars, okay, poverty, and the wealth going to a small percentage of the population. So basically, by the 19th century and entering into the 20th century, okay, this particular discontentment would lead to a polarization of society according to various ideologies. And that would be communism, anarchism, and socialism on one side. And of course, you have conservatism on one side. And the cry of the people was to have a better government, or what we would refer to as popular governments, okay, that would basically uh, be heeding the need of the ordinary Spaniard, okay, and of course the redistribution of wealth and other resources, because you know the problem with Spain was that, okay, the vast majority of its wealth was only concentrated in a small percentage of the population, where the big lands called latifundias were actually controlled by the nobility or by the upper class, okay, and beneath them directly were the peasants who had to work every day, okay, till the fields. There was no such program as land reform or any social reform that would take care of their needs. So little by little, Spain was leading towards another disaster that would lead to the Civil War of 1936, ending in 1939. Well, the monarch at that time, okay, who was also our king. No, if you are to look back into the history of the Philippines, no, he also was the king of the Philippines, but as a young boy, King Alfonso, the 13th, or the Alfonso 13, okay, his reign was characterized. His entire reign was characterized by violent class conflicts, okay, political instability, and one of his major uh, problems, or not necessarily I would say a problem, but rather mistakes, was that he also encouraged and supported a dictatorship. Okay, which occurred under his reign as the King of Spain. And in his so-called relations with the dictator that he allowed to rule Spain from 1920 until 1931. Okay, we have here General Primo de Rivera, who uh, took over the reins of government as part of a junta with the blessings of the Spanish king, and this particularly uh, made the gap between the rich and the poor wider at the same time. Okay, this made him so unpopular that by 1931 he would be forced to leave the country, okay, and go into exile. Okay, now uh, one of the major issues as well that would also be included in this so-called great conflict was the influence of the Catholic Church, because the great majority of the people, okay, looked at the church as part of the upper class, okay, as part of the upper class, and many of them, okay, especially those who had already involved themselves with radical movements, were calling for the separation of the church and the state, which at the time, okay, definitely had not yet occurred, because the Catholic Church was still very influential. It was also one of the richest landowners in the country, okay, and of course it sways uh, very strong influence, okay, especially on the monarchy, okay. And as I've mentioned earlier, as big landowners, okay, these members of the middle class going up to the upper class were large landowners. Okay. And as I've mentioned earlier, these lands, which we refer to as latifundias, okay, not only were the lands, but also the people living in it, the peasants. So before even the before even the Spanish Republic was born and proclaimed in 1931, okay, Spanish society was already divided, okay, along social and ideological lines. There was so much wealth, but at the same time, there was so much poverty that uh, that the people felt that they were being put on the side while they see the rich becoming richer. And so at a certain point, okay, with the introduction and with the influence of these other ideologies, okay, it will be creating what you might call like a great division, okay, that even the Spanish Civil War would sometimes be referred to as the fight between the peasants and that of the landowners. Okay, so basically it's a social and ideological battle. Now, another major problem that Spain was experiencing at that time was the problem of regionalism. Okay, many of you who have been following up recent events in Spain, you will maybe you've read about the problems in Barcelona, or the issue of the Catalans, okay, and the Basque, okay, especially these two groups and the other regions, okay, but the most vocal would be the Catalans and the Basque, both identifying themselves as separate nations with the separate language and the separate culture, okay. So this was another issue, because not only was there what you call like an economic problem growing and growing by the day in Spain, you also have the issue of separatism, okay, where you have these groups wanting to be independent and separating from Spain. Okay. Well, as you read from the papers, even up to today, okay, they are still very vocal and very, very, would I say that, very firm on their stand, on the issue of separatism. And so, with all of these problems um, already present, okay, a very important event would be occurring, okay, in April of 1931, because after the dictatorship fell and the king's prime minister, okay, General Primo de Rivera, okay, resigned from office, okay, another test was that the king allowed local elections, okay, and the and what happened in these elections? What happened in these elections is that uh, that the referendum we're in, the question was whether they wanted a monarchy to continue, okay, was presented to the people, and the great majority answered no. And then at the same time, the government candidates for the vice positions in the for the a call for the new government also lost in the elections. And so here you have a photo of the day when the proclamation of the republic would be occurring, because by April 14 of 1933, the king, okay, offered to abdicate and go into exile. Okay. And here you see crowds in Madrid, okay, celebrating the birth of of a new republic, okay, called the Second Republic. And I think previously in the slide, I showed you basically the new flag that would be appearing. Well, well, before I move further, I'd like to explain to you the new flag, because you will see uh, one particular difference in the middle, and that is, instead of a crown, okay, the royal crown, you will see instead in the form of a crown, but not necessarily the crown, you will see there, okay, castles, no, the towers, no, of, well, of course, Castilla, okay, because Madrid was in Castile, but everything about the flag is the same except for another color, okay, okay, the one below, okay, which would be forming part of the new color of the Spanish flag, okay. Now, so by 19 uh, so when the king left, okay, it will take a few years before the Spanish Civil War would actually begin. But you could already see that problems were already piling up. Okay, there was there was so much conflict, okay, in Parliament at the Cortes, because you have the elected officials on the left who were in the majority, debating with the members of the right, the conservatives, and not only were they debating, but they were fighting out in the streets, okay, between both groups, okay, the left and the right, okay, fighting in the streets, resulting to bloody confrontations. Well, in this particular case, you have the left, which was united because you have the communists, the socialists, and the anarchists together on one side, while on the right, okay, the members of the right, you have their main support coming from the military. Okay, and the right, although they were not in the majority in government, but because they know that the military was actually supporting them, they openly challenge the government. Okay, they openly challenge the government. And one thing would lead to the other. While the military would try to remain neutral per se, there was what you call a rattling of sabers already occurring within, because you have a group of disgruntled military officers, okay, um, witnessing the disintegration of Spain, okay, because they saw the members of the left, the communists, and they were afraid of communism because at that time, okay, the Soviet Union were supporting the leftist government, okay, while at that time as well, the members of the right, okay, much later on, you will see already the support coming also from other governments, especially from governments like Germany and Italy, with their fascist governments openly supporting uh, the right wing movement. And further later on, okay, a new movement would arise, okay, from the right, and that would be the Phalangists or the Phalangistas, the members of the Phalange, okay? And the members of the Phalange, okay, would heed the call of its founder, okay? And the founder was Jose Antonio Primo de Rivera, who founded it in 1933, okay? Well, the Phalange Española, or simply the Spanish phalanx, of course, would take its would take Mussolini's fascist movement as its model, also borrowing ideas also from National Socialism, okay, from the Nazis in Germany, okay, through Adolf Hitler, okay. Now, at that time, okay, although you have the phalange on one side and then you have the military on one side, later on you will see a united front from this side, okay, and because of the unification, they would later on, okay, unite their forces and form what we would call, okay, the military wing of the um, of the Phalange movement. Okay, so as I've said earlier, there was so much saber rattling among the generals and officers in the Spanish army, and these generals were led by General Mola or General Mola, and the other one is Francisco Franco. Now, the eruption of the Civil War will simply be a military move by the army. Actually, Spaniards would even tell up to now that it was a coup d'état, okay, a golpe de estado, okay, led by these generals against the legally elected government at that time, okay, which was run by a popular front known as together the Popular Front, which is actually a mixture of the anarchists, the socialists, and the communists. Now, when the Spanish War or the Spanish Civil War erupted, suddenly you have Spain divided into two parts and into two groups. Those who defended the republic would be referred to as the Republicans. So they were supported by the union members, the unions, okay? The communists, the anarchists, the workers, the peasants, okay? Um, and then on one side, you have the nationalists, okay? Nationalistas. And this group, you will have there the military rebels, okay? The members of the bourgeoisie, okay? The landlords, and supported by the members of the upper classes. Well, I forgot to mention here that the nationalists also will be supported by the Catholic Church because they will see this as a crusade against communism. Because at that time, no, communism through the workings of the Soviet Union was trying to force its influence leftist movements in Europe and especially in Spain. So they saw this as a crusade, just like you have the Reconquista, where you have the crusade uh, to 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 defeat the Moors and to liberate Spain from the Moors. Okay, for them it was another liberation, a call to defend the enemies of Spain against communism in general. So it was basically a battle between fascism and democracy. Okay. So the whole world will turn its attention later on to what would be happening in Spain. They saw it as a preparatory battle for, well, many of them already saw that a bigger battle would be looming in the future, and that would be with the rise of Germany and the rise of Italy, okay, especially Adolf Hitler, okay. They saw the civil war in Spain as the first battleground to fight the rise of fascism. And so those who supported, okay, the Republican government, even from other foreign governments, later on they would be sending aid. They would be sending not only food, water, milk. They would also be sending through volunteers, soldiers, okay, um, militiamen who would be signing up from various countries, okay, independently from their governments, but later on they will be forming part of a larger brigade that will be known as the International Brigade. Okay. Well, just to explain these posters, you have the poster on the left. You have there Francisco Franco with the Spanish flag, and also the the phalange, the flag of the phalange or the falangista, where you have the bow and the arrow, which was actually, I would always tell this to the students that it was also a symbol used during the time of the Reconquista in Spain, okay, and included in the coat of arms of Isabella Católica, okay, Isabella la Católica, or the Catholic monarchs of Spain. Okay. So here you have okay, you have okay, Jose Antonio Primo de Rivera on the left, and then you have Francisco Franco on the right, who would be combining their forces in the future. Okay, well, just to segue a little bit, in the future, Franco would be the supreme head of all the military forces, including the Phalange, because after the death of Jose Antonio Primo de Rivera at the hands of the Republican government as a prisoner, okay, uh, Franco united all the forces under his leadership. Okay, so now he was the unquestionable leader of the nationalist movement, okay, fighting the Republican government of Spain. So, okay, when war erupted, okay, in July of 1936, people from all over, okay, from various ideologies, okay, took up arms. Okay, men, women, young and old, okay, took part in the defense of many cities under the within the Republican zone. And one place I would always like to visit outside of Madrid was to see always the so-called defense lines of the Republicans, because for 3 years the nationalists laid siege on the city, always to be repulsed by the combined forces of these men and women from the various parties. Whether you were an anarchist, whether you're a socialist or the communist, they were all fighting for the same, for the salvation of the Republican government. Okay, and then on one side you have what? You have the nationalists led by Francisco Franco. And I would like to turn your attention to the right, the picture on the right, because this is where basically you see also how the Catholic Church supported also the nationalist movement of Franco. Okay. Uh, so you have the military chaplains, okay, invoking this battle as a crusade against communism, against this godless ideology and government. So teaching the soldiers, okay, especially this particular one, from a battalion in Navarre, okay, or a group called the Carlistas, uh, and they were another group that supported Franco, okay, during the Civil War. So they believed that they were fighting a holy war against communism, and so you have here the presence of military chaplains, which, well, while on the other side, the Republicans were destroying churches, destroying convents, ransacking churches and cathedrals, and executing the members of the church. Okay, which made them uh, very unpopular also among the conservative Catholic Spanish population. So here they see themselves as the saviors of Spanish society. Now, this is a symbol of the phalange. Okay. Uh, okay. The same symbol that you will see in the coat of arms of Isabella la Católica. Okay. The who, for many of you, if you are familiar with Isabella la Católica, she was the one who gave Christopher Columbus permission to go on an expedition to discover the Americas. Okay, but on the other hand, okay, she was also used as a symbol, okay, of a united and strong Spain. I remember coming upon a group of fascists in Madrid one time, and well, they were they were peacefully having their own manifestation there or rally, but they were crying out the same motto or the same battle cry that was shouted during the Civil War. And they were shouting, Spain won, meaning España una, Spain won, España grande, Spain great. And then the last shout, okay, España libre, meaning a Spain that is free, meaning free from all of these ideologies. Okay, so so you see the sentiment still strong even up to the present. Okay, up to the present day. So basically, if you look at the map of the Civil War, this is how you will see one part of Spain, okay, which falls under the nationalist zone, and that is on the left side, the pinkish with the pinkish background. While on one side you have the Republicans, okay, in control also of many capitals in the various regions in Spain, especially the capital city of Madrid. But well, I'm not a military strategist, but you will see already here a disadvantage wherein uh, some parts of Republican Spain were cut off from the rest, especially the provinces known as the Basque provinces and the provinces of Asturias up in the up in the top. Okay, while on the other side you also have another province separated, cut off from the Republicans, and that would be the province of Extremadura. Okay, with the capital at Badajoz, which would make it easier for this separated provinces to fall to Franco in the future. Okay. Now, did the Spanish Republicans receive help from the outside? Definitely. If you if you look at the list of countries that supported the nationalist and the Republican side, you have on the nationalist getting their support, their weapons, even volunteers from Germany and Italy. And on the Republican side, you have an international group of volunteers from many countries, united only by singing the International, okay? The International Song of Socialism that has been translated into various languages. Now, this is a very well, a very beautiful picture, but a sad picture as well, because maybe I'm showing already the beginning of the end, no, of the Spanish Civil War in Spain, because this shows you a group of international brigadiers leaving Spain, okay, but being thanked by the population in Barcelona for their services, and that they will be never and that they will never be forgotten. Okay. The fall of the Republicans was this famous line by Dolores Ibarrubi, okay, a Spanish communist, a woman who gave and strengthened the what you call the will of the Madrileños and the will of the Republicans to fight to the very end. She was the one who coined the expression "no pasaran," they will never pass. And so at the end, they kept on saying that they will not pass, they will not pass. But unfortunately, in the future, okay, okay, they will pass, and the Republicans will lose Spain. Okay. Now, in my earlier research on Filipinos or foreigners getting involved in the Spanish Civil War, I've come upon my initial list at the very beginning of, and I'm very happy to share, my first list of Filipinos actually, who I saw listed down in the Abraham Lincoln Brigade. And as you will see here, many of them were members of the Partido Comunista de Filipinas. Okay, they later on would find their way in Spain, together with Filipinos already working in the United States. Okay, uniting with them, but you will see that uh, their connections, their linkages with the local Communist Party, at the same time, their particular role being members also of the American Communist Party in the United States, which later on would lead them to register as members of the international brigades coming from the United States, known as the Abraham Lincoln Brigade. Okay, so there were three main groups actually who took part in the international brigades. Okay, not all of them were communists, not all of them were anarchists, not all of them were socialists. Many of them were idealists, people who believed in a free world, who wanted simply to stop the onslaught of fascism. Because by 1936, Hitler was already someone to watch, in the future, because they already saw a rising Germany, the rise of fascism in Italy, and they saw the dangers of the rise of these two governments, and of course the threat of another war, okay, that more or less would be coming in the very near future. So you have the PKP, the Partido Comunista de Filipinas, sending volunteers, those who could actually go. Okay, you also have the Abraham Lincoln Brigade. Okay, and then you have the Communist International. Okay, again, a a, a group of communists from all countries of the world. That's why this particular war, although fought in Spain, you will see so many nationalities actually involved here, from the Japanese to the Canadians to the Hungarians to the French. Okay, you will see them actually taking part, and many of them would simply volunteer either in the Abraham Lincoln Brigade or the Communist International. Okay, now what was the International Brigade? Okay, there were around 40,000 men and women from 52 countries. Okay, and many of this were actually people from all over. Okay, so just imagine, um, you have almost 3,000 Americans, and the rest would simply be a motley group of what? Of various nationalities. And the American volunteers served in various units. Okay, and because of their so-called role in the Spanish Civil War, okay, and together with them were other nationalities. They were simply referred to as the Abraham Lincoln Brigade, and they took it as the name of their unit. Okay, so the International Brigades, according to the author Jack Shirai, okay, would be coming from various nationalities. Okay, so you have here, as you will see, from from various nationalities, various races. It says, todos los pueblos del mundo están en las brigadas internacionales al lado del pueblo español. Or, okay, all the people of the world represented in the international brigades are on the side of the Spanish people. And also another poster here, Los Internacionales, united, okay, uh, united with the Spanish, fighting against the invaders. Okay, fighting against the invaders. Okay. Now, okay, very rare photograph that I saw in Spain of okay, Chinese brigadists. Okay, uh, so they found their way in Spain. Okay, they fought violently. I uh, I could I could not get actually a copy of the list and a few photographs actually that I was not allowed to take to make copies of from years back. I hope in the future I'll be able to get them because I saw some photographs of prisoners, Chinese prisoners, Filipino prisoners, and some Japanese prisoners put on one side. Okay, many of them were actually set free after the war, allowed to return home. Okay, although some of them were executed, but you see, I've never seen actually a list yet of Filipinos who were captured but later on executed. Okay, apparently, okay, and if I can say so now, okay, apparently they were not executed; they were set free, or they simply was able to leave Spain at the right moment. Okay, so you see in the faces of these people in this photograph, okay, of people uh, represented from various nationalities, okay, from Native Americans to Afro Americans to Puerto Ricans, Cubans, and Filipinos. And one particular person is Mark Fajardo, who served uh, in the um, in the Abraham Lincoln Brigade. Later on, okay, he would be returning to the United States. Okay, he would return briefly to the Philippines, but later on he would return to the United States. Okay, as his family was there. Okay, another one is, I'm sorry, uh, Artemio Luna Ortega, the one in the middle. Okay, uh, who served with some French members of the International Brigade. Okay, uh, later on in my research, Ateneo Luna Ortega would also, well, he would be captured, but later on set free after the end of the Civil War. Okay. Now, a very interesting photograph of Bishop Agrippa, and this is uh, they, Bishop Agrippa in a interview mentioned that he was willing to send 150,000 to 200,000 Filipinos to fight on the side of the Republic. Okay. Uh, but again, no, I'm still searching for any written document to actually refer to that particular statement that he made. Okay. And well, we tried to look for it years ago at the Agrippaean archives. Okay. But unfortunately, we could not find them. But hopefully one day, okay, we would find a particular statement referring to that move by Bishop Agrippa to send Filipino soldiers, Filipino volunteers to fight in Spain. Now, were the other supporters of the Civil War on the other side? Remember, Filipinos did not just support the Republicans, okay? There were also Filipinos, okay, but another group of Filipinos that supported the nationalists from the Philippines, okay? Well, uh, okay, they were supporting the nationalist movement by sending money. The chief cons, the how did the official Spanish consul in the Philippines was uh, Andres Soriano Zobel de Ayala, who was this consul at that time, and he was basically sending around 50,000 pesos a month to the nationalist movement, okay, to buy weapons, to buy medicines, to buy arms, okay. and he was basically involved not only in local politics here but also in the politics of the politics Spain. And of course, everyone at the time knows that, okay, he was the owner of the famous San Miguel beer, the San Miguel brewery. He owned several mines, okay, and his business was all over in the United States, Hong Kong, Africa, and in Spain, okay. Well, another main supporter as well of of the the Nationalists, who is a member of the local Falange movement in Manila, was Don Enrique Sobel de Ayala. Okay, uh, and again, okay, there will be several photographs of their meetings with these people particularly present, and groups in Manila, especially the Casino Español. Okay, uh, if you go to the Casino Español at TM Calo in Manila, you will see there near the entrance of the casino a plaque wherein the names of the various members who volunteered to fight in Spain and later on lost their lives. Their names are listed there, okay, to be remembered, okay, fallen but remembered. Now, here you see here at the Casino Español adopting what the not the Republican flag, but La Bandera Igualda y Roja, meaning the official Spanish flag, the one that was being used by Francisco Franco. So the local Spanish community in the Philippines, okay, basically um, uh, gave their loyalty to the nationalist government. But later on, after the Civil War, many uh, many militiamen, those who supported the Republican government, upon escaping from Spain, okay, found their so-called freedom in France for a while, and some of them later on found their way to the Philippines. Okay, I've met some of them. Okay, and some of them actually recently received their Spanish citizenship again. After losing it because they've been in the Philippines all these years, and of course, Francisco Franco's government, after winning the Civil War in 1939, was in power until 1975. Okay. And so many of them simply did not return home anymore and simply were just waiting for the right time to return home. But the main supporters as well, not just members of the Casino Espanol, the members of the various religious orders, okay, especially the order of preachers, or the Dominicans, um, were quite supportive of the nationalist movement, the local, meaning the consular office of the Spanish government, the various, what you call that, clubs known as the Casinos Españoles, okay, also the High Allies, okay, found in Cebu and Manila, were also meeting places for the members of the Falange, and also the various businesses, okay, um, like the tabacaleras, okay, these large tobacco factories here, okay, they were supporting financially also the nationalist movement back in Spain. And of course, in this particular case, though, as we were just we have just become a Commonwealth in 1936. Okay, the Commonwealth in 1936. Well, um, many members of the local Spanish community, okay, still maintain their anti-American stance even during those years, those decades of living in the Philippines. So, in a way, okay, by their support to Franco, okay, by their support of its fascist government, they simply were also sending a message also to the Americans that, okay, that uh, they were still loyal to Spain, but they were also loyal to the Philippines. Okay, I would like to explain that later on, in the open forum. Okay, what I meant by that. Okay, but of course, in the Philippines, in the 1930s. even way beyond the 1930s. Okay, and I'd like to share you this two examples of Spanish movies, made in the Philippines with local actors. Okay, you will see that our ties with Spain was still strong. Okay, culturally, politically, okay, economically. Okay, no matter what. Okay, La Madre Patria, as they would say, was still Spain. Okay, and um, well, I I I saw this particular photograph of a this I'm here. I was to look for it. This okay 1939, March 30, a month before the end of the Civil War. Let's imagine, March 13, 1939. Okay, at the Manila Cathedral, the local Spanish community. Okay, uh, well, no, I'm sorry, my mistake at UST at Intramuros. Okay, okay, you will see the members of the local Spanish community. Okay, you see them raising their arms in the fascist salute. Okay, attending a mass. Okay, celebrating the various victories of the nationalist move of Franco in Spain, and by April 1. Okay, by April 1, the dia el dia de la victoria, the day of victory, would be proclaimed already the day after that. Okay, meaning the end of war. Finally, the war is ended, and peace, okay, had already arrived in Spain. Okay, but well, a series of photographs that I'd like to share with you, and that is okay, a meeting in at UST. Okay, just to show you that's Andres Soriano up front. Okay, and some of them are seen wearing the uniform of the Phalange movement in Spain, the blue uniform, as seen being worn by this man, okay, beside Andres Soriano. So by April of 1939, okay, the war in Spain would come to an end. And later on, those who were able to escape, I'm referring to the international brigades and all the volunteers who fought for the nationalist, the Republican government in Spain, some of them would find their way to freedom or to escaping to France, okay, and then returning to their homes, while some of them will languish in jail in in Spain and wait to be repatriated or wait to be set free by the Spanish government. And another example of the local Spanish community support for Spain, you have here a newspaper published in the Manila, Arriba España, or well, I have, the word Arriba means Aupa or Hail Spain. It's like, and you see here Franco, okay, with uh, with the Facile Saluti. By this time, he would be known already as El Caudillo, or the leader, okay, El Caudillo, okay. Il Duce for Mussolini, El Caudillo for Franco, der Führer for Adolf Hitler. Okay. Well, at the end, I would like to share with you this book that, hopefully it will be translated into English, and it will give you an insight into the local phalange movement in the Philippines. Okay, those who supported the nationalist movement, or the rebellion, okay, by the military in Spain from here. And you will see here a very, very nice photograph cover of the book of Florentino Rodao, okay, of young Spanish boys riding a carabao and giving the fastest salute. Okay. Okay, I'd like to end here though. And but before I go, I would like to, okay, share with you, if I may, some. Okay, I hope I can share this just a moment. Okay, there. Okay, I'd like to share with you some documents that was able to that was shared to me, okay, by Dr. Guillermo, and you see here a registration of a Filipino in the Spanish Communist Party, or Partido Comunista de España. Okay, I hope it can be. Okay, I hope you can. Okay, see his name. So Enrique. Okay, Enrique Almenar. What was his nationality? Filipinas, and he signed up as part of the international brigades. Okay, and then of course, uh, hope I can show you. Okay, okay, another one, another file of the same person, Enrique Almenar. Okay, born in Manila, 1920. Okay, uh, okay, with his address and everything. Well, these documents are not found in the Philippines, but they were discovered in a Russian archive. Okay, in in um, in Moscow. Okay, okay, another one. Okay, by the same person. Okay, I think it's wait, I'm sorry. I think it's the same document, but let me refer to you. Okay, who this person was. Okay, that's him, Enrique Almenar. And Enrique Almenar, okay, together with his friend Manuel Lizaraga. Okay, Manuel Lizaraga. Okay, okay, again, that's Manuel Lizaraga's registration as a member of the Partido Comunista de España, the PK, okay, the Spanish Communist Party. Okay. Anyway, I'll, thank you very much for listening to this short lecture. I hope I can share with you more. And if you have any questions, I'll be very happy to share with you some information as well, no, from my sources. Okay. Thank you very much.